meeting is recorded, and chat and the captions as we talk are also captured for note taking and streaming or being part of the meeting.
Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and start. I had shared the link to a lot of notes for today's meeting, as well as the link that takes you to the website that has the agenda and the minutes. So hopefully you had a chance to look at those. So we're gonna start with attendance. And do we just need to put here in the chat so our names all pop up? Is that correct,
Yes.
Bart? So everyone just put here in the chat. So let's see, we've got, I think you, even though you don't vote, Mel, you probably should do it too.
It's helpful for minutes. Yes, thanks.
Okay, so Carla, Jason, Chris. And okay. Larry, I'm not seeing yours.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm looking for the chat button in this.
Look in the bottom right is a little.
Looks like a little comment.
Looks like a little comment with 3 lines in a box, like a cartoon thing.
Oh, wait a minute. There it is. Sorry about that.
No problem. Okay, so that'll serve as our attendance. So the first thing we need to do then is approve the agenda for today. So if you don't already have that opened on your computer, I can put a link to it in the chat. Let me do that right now. Here's a link to the agenda in the chat. If everyone could open that, and then if I could get a motion from someone to approve the agenda, that would be fantastic.
I'll second Chris. He approved in the chat.
Oh, okay, so we have a motion by Chris and a second by Bart to approve the agenda. Any comments or discussion before we vote? Okay, we have quite a few where the cameras aren't on, so I'm just going to assume, unless you do something, that you're good to keep going. So
we might have some public comment, Dawn, too. It's potential.
Okay.
So please vote in the chat to approve the agenda for today. Any members that have joined us, please say here in the chat when you have a chance for attendance. Thank you.
Okay. Are we good?
Looks good.
All right. So moving along on the agenda then, the first thing we need to do is if you click on the previous minutes, item number 5,
Actually, Dawn, we have public
Oh,
comment.
public comment. I'm sorry. I always manage to skip that, even though you just said it 10 seconds ago. Now, would that be people who actually joined the call? And is there also still the option for people to send stuff in written?
Yes, if somebody has any comments that want to be added to the meeting, they can email FUSD-web,
Okay.
and that's also on our site. But if you would like to give live comments, which must be available for the current virtual setup, please raise your hand in the tool. I think we have one.
Okay, so I'm seeing some hands, and then how we allow 10 minutes for this, right?
10 minutes total, but a regular amount of commentary is
Right. Okay.
up to
So,
you.
Afaria Khan. You can go ahead and unmute.
Hi, sorry about that. Faria Khan, longtime FUSD parent, been very, very involved in our schools since 2004. I have a public comment about Infinite Campus and the way that the communication is done. I realized that Infinite Campus was adopted maybe a couple of years ago or last year. And as a parent, when I get emails from the school, the sender says Fremont Unified School District. So it's really hard to tell who's sending the email. I find it hard to believe that Infinite Campus does not have some sort of setting or cannot customize a solution for FUSD if they don't have it, where it shows which school it's from and also who the sender is. So as far as I can tell, there's no option for the teachers to put a signature in there. And so if the teacher does not sign his or her name, or the principal or whoever is sending the message, I have no idea. With kids at multiple schools, I don't know who's sending the message. I don't know what school it's from. And so it'd be really, really useful to, if it hasn't been already, bring this to the attention of Infinite Campus so that communication can be a little bit more smooth and also transparent. Because, for example, when back to school night was happening over Zoom and I have kids at 2 schools with 6 teachers each, oftentimes I didn't know who was sending the message and I didn't know which classroom it belonged to or which school. So that's my public comment. I'm hoping that, I'm not sure if this is something that the tech committee is in charge of or can offer advice back to the board. But, this is something that's just been frustrating, and I know it's frustrating for quite a few other parents as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
Any other public comment? Okay. So not seeing any at this time, we'll continue with our agenda, and I'll keep my timer going we have about additional 8 minutes or so. Am I doing it right, Bart? Okay, thanks. All right. So now we'll go ahead and approve the previous minutes. So go ahead and you can click on that link in the agenda, item number 5. And if anyone has already read them, we can make a motion. I've already read them, and I can make a motion to approve the minutes. I see a second by Michelle. Any discussion or comments about the minutes before we vote on them? I'm practicing my teacher wait time.
Maybe just a general question. If there is something that is still not yet addressed or that we were going to get back to us on, does that happen immediately now, or does it become a future agenda item? So I'm just looking for a point of clarification on how that goes.
A point of clarification that there's something that's not in the agenda?
Well, we were waiting to hear some results. So does that come up now when we approve it, or do we put it on the agenda at a future time to get an update on it?
Yeah, so right now in this moment, we just need to approve the minutes. And then once we get into our actual agenda items. If we get to the end and there was something that was supposed to, you expected or saw, or we talk about future agenda items and there's something missing or that got forgotten, that would be the perfect time to bring that up. Okay. All
Got it.
right. So any other comments about the minutes before we vote? Okay, so go ahead and use the chat for the approving the minutes. Sandhya. Okay, so that passes. And we can move on to our next item. So the next item would be old business. And we didn't have anything for that. So that's quick and easy, and we're done with that. And now we go on to new business agenda. And I shared with you a lot of information about this topic that I'm going to let Bart talk to you about. And I'm just going to go ahead and turn it over to Bart. And I see Diane Jones just joined the meeting. Thank you, Diane.
Yeah,
If you
thank you. I just came from the joint city council meeting, so I'm disheveled and I'm not hooked up to my Ethernet, so I'm going to keep my camera off so I stay connected.
No worries. If you have a chance, if you could just type here in the chat so we have it recorded, that would be great. Okay, so
All right.
Bart is going to talk about the content management system.
So this was a pretty big document we shared with the group. It's been created over a number of months with the goal to try to figure out a good new public-facing web publishing tool. And I guess I just wanted to start off with if we all felt that this was a reasonable goal for our agenda, that we're looking at the process of selecting the tool, not necessarily getting into the actual fiddly settings of each of the types of tools that are available, but we're trying to take a wider view of it and see if the group that's putting together this selection is on track, and if you guys see any issues with any of your technical skills or any feedback as parents and in publishing stuff or reading stuff on the web, and any feedback from that side. So it's more of a top level look at the tools and how we're trying to get them picked out and set up. And so if that does work, because I'm the main person doing this, I would be recused from the voting, just so as it would be a conflict of interest. So you're basically trying to critique the approach, and working Mel IT and the Public Information Department are the two main prongs right now working on this project. So I guess, is there any discussion around the general goal over the next 20 minutes or so as we're working on this document?
Yeah, so I could use a little bit more clarification as I was clicking through the links and trying to get a sense of everything that was there. Are you strictly asking us to look at the timeline itself? Or that list? So there's the process, that's all the bulleted items. And so you're talking about an overview of the entire process?
So yes, so if you had a chance to look at some of the sub documents, that's great. And if you spotted things that looked inconsistent or you would expect to see in a project like that, it would be great to bring that up. But it's also just a top level saying, oh, this project has a timeline, it has a scope, it has some previous notes. It has new information about the tools and things like that.
Okay.
Let's see. What was the order here? Jason?
Sure. It might be in your process, but I wondered if there was an end user aspect to it, not just for people reading the information, but I know at our school site, classified staff in the office are the ones who update things. So are you surveying people like the office attendants that might be doing this and school secretaries to get their feedback?
Yes. Yep. That is under our staff evaluation group. There's about 13 volunteers that have helped out, and we have a Google Doc that we're working on, looking at some of these tools, either looking at videos about the tools and or logging in and discussing back end editing. Does it work? Did it have enough information to capture? Did I have a publishing time? Things like that. So we are including that.
Okay.
Our timer just rang for our public comment. So we will go ahead and close that.
Is there, ask just one more time if we, is there anyone else on the?
Yeah, I see, Larry, did you have a comment about what we were talking about or a public comment?
I just wanted to be clear that what they're discussing here is a public portal for Fremont Unified.
Yes.
Right, basically replacing what they have now. It's a content management system for Fremont Unified. It's not a learning management system.
Correct.
Okay.
Any other public comment? I see, Carla, you raised your hand, but is it about the topic we're discussing or is it a public comment? I'm just trying to close that out first.
It's about the topic.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and close public comment, being it doesn't seem that there are any more public comments. And Carla, go ahead, please.
So this is to replace School Loop, right? And then, so we already have another vendor to replace School Loop that we have, that you're already having other secretaries kind of, or other schools try out. Is that what I'm trying?
That's the general, yes, that group has access to some test or sandbox sites where if they want to log in and make a post or an announcement or put something on the calendar, they can try that with this group of tools that's under map scope to vendors. So we have about 6 or so tools that are holding up so far with our minimum features and usability, and our group that is testing them out.
Okay, Michelle.
Yeah, just for clarification, because back when I used School Loop a couple of years ago, and then we migrated in place of Illuminate, and then we migrated over to IC. Does IC and whatever new thing that we're looking at to replace School Loop, will they merge together? Is it necessary for them to talk to one another, or are they to be 2 separate entities?
Excellent question. So I consider that integration as kind of the general vocabulary word that I use for that.
Okay.
Any of these processes will be able to have some type of updating tool, which either would happen on a clock, like over midnight, which is some of our tools do that right now. Bright Arrow does that with our SIS, Illuminate. And some of them will have integrations that are tighter than that, where they are just updated as Illuminate becomes, or sorry, Infinite Campus becomes updated. So Infinite Campus is our student records, and basically no student records are on our public facing website. So we wouldn't be touching, we might have a membership user groups that would log into the site, but it wouldn't be that there was any information about students' addresses, any of those pieces there. Those have a higher level of privacy and pieces that Infinite Campus handles, not the publishing tool of our public facing site. And Larry, you're correct about this is exactly taking whatever we see on the website right now and using a new tool to do that. So School Loop is going away in June 2023. And so we're trying to get ahead of that and start building the site out in the beginning of the new year, get permission or get sign off from the board, hopefully in December, and keep the project moving forward. Looks like you're muted, Larry.
For content management systems, this is a fairly straightforward process. This is our content. This is how we want it displayed. This is our navigational structure. Learning management systems have a whole different level of complexity, including all the security and stuff. I used to develop a Moodle site, so I know exactly what we're talking about there.
Thank you. Michelle, you still?
Yes. Just for clarification. So School Loop dying out? Is that why we're replacing it?
So we're running into a couple of issues. One, they're continuing to charge us a lot more than what we're getting from them. We don't use it for School Loop or for Loop Mail anymore. We don't use it for grade books anymore, but they're still charging us. It would be over $100K for the next cycle. So the cost and benefits are pretty low, and they are not responding very well to our support, and they tend to crash maybe 10 minutes to upwards of 2 hours over the weekend and at midnight, and our site is actually completely down. So they have just sort of a maintenance issue. They've been purchased 2 years ago by another holding company, and they're just sort of kept alive, but there's no feature enhancements. One of the ones I know is if you look at the copyright on it, it says 2018 on the bottom of our tool. So it's like, okay, that's the last time anyone even noticed or did anything with it. So
Thank you. Thank you for the clarification.
I have a question, Bart. I noticed that one of the items indicates says community survey results, communication initiatives closes 10/23. And I'm wondering how. So sometimes we do surveys and we don't get an overwhelming response. And I guess is there a minimum number of responses we're looking for before or do we just take, if we got hardly any, that's just it, that there was just an opportunity? Or is there something that would trigger more publicity about it to try to get more input?
Sure, that's a great question. So we just initially launched it on Friday, or I guess Thursday was to staff, and Friday it went out as a district-wide part of the superintendent's newsletter. And we're going to have it open for almost a month, I think. So we're going to be promoting it again through the superintendent's newsletter and another staff plug, and it's going up on Facebook as well. So we had, I think, over almost 200 responses over the weekend. So it's a start. We probably look at a percentage of our expected audience, and if we'll compare it to previous parent satisfaction surveys and things like that, just to get an idea of, do we have a reasonably valuable number? But it should show us some patterns in what our community is hoping to see. And it's a much more general, it's kind of like the approach of this agenda item. It's a general, like, do you go to the web? Do you go to your phone? Do you go, do you like to get the email? Do you like to see it on Facebook? What are your channels that you consume as an audience versus what little fiddly tools or whatever you're excited to hear? So
Okay.
I think it's kicked off pretty well so far.
All right, Sandhya?
So I was thinking we have the Google Suites. Does the Google Suite, the website, do we not have the ability to use the Google Sites, or does not meet the requirements of what we want?
So the excellent question. The Google Sites are used a lot by librarians and teachers and PTAs and other groups, and it's a very good, strong tool, and it is integrated. The tool that we would pick would also have a single sign-on, so it would work with Google in our regular. We wouldn't have to have two different user groups, so that would be helpful. But to your point, we don't have the granular permissions with Google Sites right now. Their new Sites version won't keep one editor from editing the front page and a sub page and a department page or a kindergarten page and a second grade page. So it's mostly on the granular permission level. And then it's also, the presentation is good, but it's not quite there for routing news items to every school and building a little bit more video and other presentation pieces that we're hoping to get with this change as well.
Thank you.
Let's see. I guess one of the ones that I was hoping to get a little feedback on was open source versus closed source. So we have a couple, basically we have one primarily open source idea, a WordPress multi-site. And then we have a number of closed source, but basically a proprietary closed source. So Final Site and Wix and Catapult and Edlio. So those, I didn't know if anybody had any positive, negatives or conversation they wanted to bring up around open or closed source solutions.
Can I ask, Bart, what's your preference? I know I'm staying in the background, but what's your preference? Open source or?
I mean, that's kind of why I'm asking. I've done actually a lot of development in WordPress previous to this job. So I have about 13 years of web development starting back in the early .coms. And then I've been here for 8 years and we've been on closed source. So I think that I like WordPress a lot, but I'm also concerned you move away from some of the training and the support that you don't have with a closed source or a service that's kind of combined. All the other services have sort of a supported, there's a lot of training out there for WordPress, but is it available to the people who need it when they are asking for it? So I'm probably leaning almost down the middle, but probably a little bit towards the closed source. But I think some of the security parts of open source are not as dramatic as they used to be. The company we would use for our WordPress install is focused on security and server uptime and managed all the things we would need. So it's significantly cheaper. That's why it keeps coming back up. It's half the price probably.
Is it, if it's on premise or off? Do you know if it's?
I will check.
It's all on
Oh
premise.
no, it would be cloud based off premise. Yeah.
Okay, so Larry and then Jason.
Well, my comment would be, I always tend to lean a little bit towards the open source. For instance, I've worked with Moodle and Blackboard, and Blackboard was closed source. And so the differences that I noticed was that, of course, with a closed source system, you have support. With an open source system, you don't, because you're not paying anything. So you don't get it. But what you have is a large user group. What you do get out of an open source system, better than a closed source system, is usually a large user group where if you have an idea for a feature, you just mention it and the next day it's there. Whereas with a closed source system, you got to propose it. Maybe it's in their interest. Maybe it isn't. Who they may decide to put it in place, or they may not. And if they decide not to put it in place, that's just tough luck for you. So that's sort of the difference that I see.
Thank you, Larry.
I'm going to jump in. Thank you, Larry, as well. The piece that I like about the open source as well that I'm wondering about is if we do have our community and our students potentially starting to help with these tools or be kind of controlled editors in certain cases. We've had some opportunities where some classes have asked, oh, I could help, or I could be a student editor and then get it cleared and have a workflow and pieces like that. So if you are working on WordPress, you are working on a huge, some would say 20-30% of the internet is on WordPress right now. So all of the sites that we see, there's a huge number of them that are on that tool. And if you were training and working with that, maybe that would advance even our staff in understanding, the most modern open tool to publish to the web. So that has another little bonus to it. Jason?
So I want to echo the open versus closed source pro con. My biggest concern has to do with the support as it escalates, because a lot of times maybe we'll have more people involved in doing the editing, but going back to what I was saying about our end users earlier, it's office staff that may not be the most tenacious people to go out and find their own solutions. And if they're struggling to find it, do they call you, Bart? Do they open an IT case? If they don't have that line of support, where do they go? So that's my concern with this in terms of an open. It works well for people that are go-getters and like to try and work through and figure things out on their own. But I don't know if that's going to be the majority of people that are doing this kind of editing on the regular, with the exception of yourself. That's my concern.
Michelle?
Yeah, to piggyback on that, on Jason's thing, my concern is, from when I'm just heard earlier from Barth, is that we don't have the support from the company. And so that's what I would be looking at more, is what is their percentage of down times on whether it's a WordPress or another group, whether it's open, closed, open or shut or whatever. It's how, when you look at the company, how many times are they down? Are they down an average of 10%? Are they average? They were down 2 minutes out of a year, whatever that is. Can we get those type of numbers so that we can see what we're really dealing with as far as a background? Because you could have all the support you want and learning how to put the information into the web or into your page, but unless it is actually being broadcast, it's not, if it's not, if you got a closed server somewhere that no one can get into because the guy forgot to plug it in or something, it's not going to do anyone any good.
Okay, thank you, Michelle.
We had Trustee Prasad join. If you could type here into the chat, it would help with our attendance. Okay, thank you so much for the feedback on open and closed source. It is very much kind of right on that line. The pluses and minuses. Any solution is not going to, unfortunately, answer all of the questions that we want. But that was one that I wanted to get some feedback on. Let's see. I think the other part of this is we have a number of features that we really want to have. And if you click on, let's see, where do I talk about features? Define project scope. So the second link of the document Ask Tax Advice on Process. If we had a chance to kind of just look at that, if we were missing any parts of every single provider or vendor that we're looking at does all of this, so they can't get beyond our requirements without having these features in there. And if there's anything that we're missing, obviously one of the big pieces is languages, and I'm working with kind of getting a range of answers around languages. We know that we want to increase the visibility of our language translation tools, but we would also like to have some type of workflow and some better solutions to provide to our community with our Spanish and Mandarin requirements, but also having human translation, not just machine translation or auto translation. And versioning is another big one, as we have been, some of the tools that don't even have history tools, and that's kind of a classic. Can't roll the content back, or you get yourself stuck. And so I know that we use that a lot too. But I don't know if there's anything that jumps out at anyone. If you're able to take a look, the alerts. Part of the solutions, some of them have a greater messaging tool. So you potentially could put a post on the web, and then it would also send an email. And if it was an emergency situation, maybe send a text and even maybe a phone call. So we might be looking to integrate our communication tools a little bit more. And this might provide a chance, as long as the costs and pieces were comparable. So that would be something that Mel and I would be checking off as we finalize our.
I saw the scheduler portion on there. Bart, is that something that you currently deal with right now? I didn't know a lot of content management systems had schedulers like that.
Yeah, it is. School Loop does it by the midnight, so it's not super convenient. It's helpful to kind of turn stuff off if you need to, but it isn't really helpful to launch it. So
Right.
most of these, or all of the solutions we have, actually have it down to the hour or to the minute. So if we had like this communication survey opened up, and then we could have that reflected across the sites at the same time as we message staff and the community. So, Dawn?
Yeah, I'm wondering, is there something, I don't know how to rate it, but sort of the user-friendly aspect of things. I'm an editor right now for my department on our web pages and things.
Yep.
And obviously with a district this large and as many schools and all of the training needs and just the learning curve for staff who would be using it, is there any way that these are being evaluated for, how easy it is to use, kind of thing? Does
Is
that
it
make
intuitive
sense?
enough, Bart, or
Yeah,
what is the
ease-
UI?
ease of
The
use.
UI. Sorry.
Yep. Yeah, no, that's a good point. I think I'll try to reflect that in the next round of documentation, because
Okay.
we do want a ease of use and a kind of how long did it take you to figure that out, or how long did it take you to update this, and maybe
Right.
try
And
to
just
do
and how intuitive it is just to figure out how to use it if it's something you didn't know. And I don't know if those differences come up with open or closed source kind of things or not. But just in general, when you play around with any of those types of things, sometimes it's like, oh, this is super easy to figure out. And sometimes it's like, oh, goodness. So I
Yep.
just, for how many people will need to be trained to use this district-wide, I think that's an important thing to consider.
Yep, and that's one reason why Wix is actually on our list right now too. They have an enterprise level, so Wix is known to be a very easy to use editor, but it's a little maybe too easy or a little too simple. But we've been talking to the enterprise team there, and they may be able to provide all of these features and still have their easy interface to use. So they're still on our list as well.
Okay, Larry?
So there's the there's the web development tool, which was your WordPress, and then there's the website itself. If this is going to be a public portal, then it already needs to be so intuitive in its use that a lot of training should not be required. If you got to train district personnel in how to use the website, then this is not a good public portal.
Oh, no, I was referring just how, for people who are going to keep the pages up to date.
Oh, for the people that are actually writing
Yes.
the stuff.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And as a matter of fact, my experience is that it's easy to find people that know how to create web content. It's another thing to find people who know how to design effective websites. Just my little thing there.
And we're going to use this as an advantage to look at the design of the site, but this initial kind of conversation is really focused on back end, the tools of the site, and then we should gain some more modern presentation design layers from doing that and organizing the templates and pieces from there. So let me see if there's any other. I guess with the different vendors that we have, one of the groups that's been holding ground is called Finalsite. They recently actually bought Blackboard, so that's why Blackboard is not on our previous tool was SchoolWires, which got bought by Blackboard, and the adult school actually still uses it with a very old template that doesn't scale and other problems. But they were actually just bought the K-12 solution of SchoolWires Blackboard. Finalsite did. So part of the potential is great because they have now a bigger, robust K-12 tool, but it's also a little unstable because they're going through a brand new, acquisition. Their team, is it changing? Is it not? So they've been having some webinars and are going to be talking about their roadmap, I think, within the next 30 days. So that will help give us a little more feedback on Finalsite. But it's a very popular, strong tool for what we're looking for, and a number of districts around us have been moving away from other tools towards Finalsite. So it's currently probably the top closed source pick, but I don't know if anybody else had any other tools that they had, Catapult or Edlio, if anyone had any. Carla, you had a question?
Have you guys researched about School Messenger, or have we done that before? I'm not sure if that was brought up before.
I will take a look. We have looked, there's been about, I think, another 8 or 9 vendors behind this short list, but I will double check on School Messenger. I think they were purchased by another group, although they show up on some sites still as the main tool. But thank you for that reminder. And had you had luck with it before, Carla?
I just have other friends who from other districts that use School Messenger.
Okay. I guess we did have additional factors towards the bottom of, so if we go back to asking tax advice on the process, additional factors, just wanted to review. It does have ease of use on there, Dawn. So, but it is good to kind of bring that up to make sure that's a real solid checkbox.
Yeah, I see that now. Sorry about that.
Most of these products will have an app, whether we take them up on it or not. That will be included in the price. So that will be a presentation more than just the website on your phone. It would be having push notifications and a little bit of customization around there. Migration, of course, will be a bear. We have about 5,000 public-facing pages right now and 44 sites. So part of some of these deals are getting migration help. Most migrations will always take some filtering, managing, hand-holding to get everything to look decent. But some of the bids that we have been looking at are including more of that help. So that is a benefit to kind of launching successfully and getting to, kind of probably would be a June 15 turnover after our school year, but early in the summer that we can go from there. And training in other pieces would be quickly after we selected the tool and got cleared by the board for that. I think we're doing pretty well. I know it's a big document. This is a big part of my day, obviously, getting these pieces pulled together. So I'd continue to accept any feedback from any members of the TAC at any time. You can email me as long as we don't start a group chat or a group conversation, it's fine. And I will, add that to the mix. Yeah, so Chris?
Chris?
Yes, I think as a parent and also a parent of 2 students in the school district, because the content management system probably gonna be for the back end teachers, workers, staff to produce materials or contents to be consumed by parents and teachers and whoever interested. So I think perhaps it would be something worthy to add some consideration of a value proposition of this change. What gonna be the values or the content consumers like parents, students? So some way to articulate the benefits, right? If we do the change. That's my thought.
Great, thank you. Yeah, that would be helpful. We will definitely be starting the staff communications about this change, and some of the more power users right now have been hearing about it, but we'll be having some coordinated staff announcements, and then we'll be talking about that to our community and in the new year after we have picked out a tool and we would want to promote it and show what that value is to our district. So thanks, Chris. Vivek or Trustee Prasad?
So one question. I have not reviewed your document so far, but if you look at the clubs and other student bodies, they have a need to have a page as well. So do we allow that today? And if not, will this new system support that?
Yeah, that's a good question. Most of the ASBs and clubs are on a different tool, or we have sort of an unbranded tool to help them with some of the PTAs use sort of this publishing tool that's wrapped in, but it's not endorsed by FUSD. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure if we were working with WordPress and it was a unlimited site potential, maybe there is a window for us to provide more web publishing tools and to our community. But I think it's partly in some board policy protecting editors that are trained and understand our communication requirements. But yeah, there wouldn't be a limit on any of these tools, like per pages or for a site it would be, but per pages and sub pages, there wouldn't be any limits there. So
okay, so there's no cost implication you're saying, but we need to look at the policy implications.
Yeah, I think that would probably be the biggest part to double check or maybe start adjusting.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Carla?
So with this one, you said with the integration part of it, it doesn't have to integrate with the SIS, or does it?
It does not. So the SIS is our master database, if you think of it that way, and that
Right.
will stay that way. We're hoping that we can use the users of Google in our workspace for education as a way to provision users to edit the websites, but they wouldn't be changing their Google information or exchanging information only at like a sign-in level, like trying to have a single sign-on.
Mhm.
It wouldn't be a grabbing data from the student support or student information system and pulling it to the website. That would not be a featured, integration. It would just be if we had a tool that would get all the sign-ons and stuff, that would stay fresh and not have dual management around users, which we currently have for School Loop. So there's another value benefit.
Are we also because isn't School Loop also connected to Bright Arrow?
It is not actually. Bright Arrow is fed by Infinite Campus right now.
Got it. Okay.
But previously, School Loop was a lot of the secondary communication. So.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Jason?
I think you're muted, Jason.
Let me try again. I know the primary purpose is for public-facing websites, but the club question came up, and there might be other situations where maybe you don't want everybody in the public to do it. Would there be such permission levels that it could only be within our protected school environment in the tool as well, or is that like an additional feature that we would have to screen for?
Some of them have intranet, effectively, is sort of how I would label that.
Yep.
And some don't. But most of our intranet is been linked through Google Sites. That's how we do our staff side. So I would probably point towards a Google Sites solution if we were protecting it, because I would know that the user password integration was tighter. But it could be a piece where we do get a little bit of a membership area or a wider intranet piece to that. But I'll take it.
I guess a part of the follow-on too is I think you might have mentioned earlier, Bart, that you were hoping to get more involvement maybe from some of the upperclassmen that are knowledgeable or whatnot, but you might want to have them in a more restricted environment, at least until you want to publish it forward-facing, or maybe it's not published. But
yeah,
just wanted to ask that question.
No, that's good. I like that. And part of that would also be a workflow, so that they do a bunch of work and maybe help train up some teachers and understand the tools, but they only get it to the point of staging, and then it's published by a staff member who double checks the content. We've had a few student editors, had sort of a small group that has done that over the years, but we haven't been doing that too often. But that would be nice to open that up, because we do have a couple classes in web design and computer science. All right. Gone? I don't know. Any other feedback?
Were you looking at any type of action on this part?
I would appreciate it. Yep.
So, in the form of, we approve this process?
That would be great if that seems like people.
I think it looks very thorough, and other than just even the couple things I think that were mentioned are actually in there if you look around and find it.
It is a pretty dense document, so I'm not sure if the committee has had enough time to process it, but yeah, I'm open to any.
Do we want to maybe ask if people feel like they need more time with it and wait till next time, or if people feel like I know I took the time and kind of went through things. I even clicked on some of the website examples and things, and which wasn't really necessary, I guess, really, in terms of what you're looking for. But maybe people can put in the chat, like, I would be willing to entertain a motion, or I need more time, or if you want to unmute and make a comment. Or I guess we could make a motion and see if it goes or not. Would that be a better way to do it?
I mean, I'd like more time so I can look at if I could also look at the school districts that you mentioned too, and how they're handling this public website on their end and how it's working for them, and do, you know, kind of see it that way, if that's okay. If
Yeah, I think that I was thinking that I took the time to look at some of the websites, but I don't think it was really necessary in terms of what we're looking at. Like if the motion were to just approve the process that is being used to choose a system, then I don't know that it really matters if we had time to look at the examples. But I see Michelle has raised her hand.
Hey there. Yes, looking at the document, I would be open to moving that we affirm this particular setup as it's going. It seems rather comprehensive in that it's got a defined pathway already. We're not being asked at this time to choose
Right.
open or closed or this or that, or, you know, you're just saying, here we started, we're going to 6. I think the next meeting, when we get to this point to make the agendas, we revisit and say, okay, you had until October 23rd to solicit information from other stakeholders and parents and such, and it's gone out in the student or the superintendent newsletter twice. What's our response? What are we looking at? These type of things. I think we revisit that. But I think the pathway that has been set, I would move to affirm that we continue along this path and keep revisiting it on a monthly basis.
So was that a motion you just made?
Yes, I moved to affirm that. Yes.
Okay, I'll second. So any other discussion? And I would just, for part of the discussion here, I would just echo that I do agree with Carla that it would be nice to look at the example websites and things, but I don't think that needs to prevent us from moving forward. So that's my comment. Any other comments before we vote? Okay, so go ahead and put in the chat. Again, Bart is not voting on this one. But we do still have a quorum, so we're okay. Okay, so it looks like that passed. Thank you, Bart.
Thank you very much, everyone.
If we go back to the agenda, then our next item is our CTO update. So I'm going to turn it over to Mel for that.
Okay, I have just a couple updates. One, I do see the staffing one there, so I will talk about that a little bit. We actually filled the data administrator position, which was my old position, a data manager position. We're actually waiting for HR to kind of finalize that, but the person accepted. And so I believe that also goes to the board and will be finalized once it goes to the board. So we're able to fill that position, which was great. So we do have a data manager coming on board. We still have 3 open service tech positions, and now I believe one of them also was Bryce. So we're gonna have 4 service tech positions open, and we still haven't filled the help desk service tech. And so we're still anxiously trying to fill those positions. So if you know anybody who has help desk experience, please send them our way. We're kind of, and right now we're in a pinch, but our techs are doing what they can to get out to the site and service the site. So we're missing that position. And then again, I guess I can't talk about that until that's finalized, but we'll have another open position in our data team. So we're also looking for that. But then I just want to say, yes, we were able to fill the data administrator position, which is a key position. I think that position also works a lot with Dawn and with regards to integration. So that was good. And then one of the things I did want to bring up was that I did mention before on our last meeting, we do have movement on our scope gap recon team. They're also assisting us to do looking at our network and doing some network analysis, so which is good. Basically, not really internally, but they're just going outside, looking at all the IDF closets, the MDF closets, and that's going to help us when we go out and hopefully go to the board and talk to them about possibly doing another network audit for our infrastructure. So we have some pre-stuff going on. So hopefully when they come back with their findings, we'll be able to put something together for a network audit. So that's going to help us in our infrastructure. So that's it.
So, Bart?
Just a bit of a point of order. Mel, I'll make that agenda item next time a little more general. It should be just, you shouldn't have to feel, you're giving an update on whatever projects you see important. And so it's an informational piece. We don't vote on it or anything there. So I think the language of that, I tried to change, but because we had published the agenda. So I'll make the next agenda a little more general.
If I can get as much information I can give you guys, I'll definitely give it to you. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Mel. So the last thing for today has to do with future topics. We had a list there of some things that have been brought up. This topic from tonight, because it's extremely time sensitive, I think will continue to be an ongoing, at least, update in our future agenda topics. So if we want to take a look at that list that's linked there, we didn't, I guess I would ask that, if any of those are a priority to the board, that would be first priority. And then I think it would be important to hear from Mel as the CTO, what his top priority things are for the future agenda items. And then from all of you, we have several things that are suggested there. And I'm wondering if I'm messing something up. Robert, am I am I doing this wrong?
No, you did right. It's great. And it's good to have
Okay.
a point list. Also, I want to add the parent who came on, Faria. I've heard the same comment from some other parents.
Yeah, and we don't respond. I that is how it works. And I just would like to share that being the person that works with the secondary tech liaisons, they have been instructed to make sure that teachers are aware that the messages do come across that way. Our recommendation to staff has been to put who they are in the actual subject line. And start right away, the first sentence to, say who you are and, what you teach even, and give more information. So we have tried to let teachers know that information does come across that way. It's how it works. It's very similar to a bright arrow kind of thing where it just sends out the message. There currently is not a way to put a signature line or something that's automatic to every message. So
And is this the School Loop? School Loop did School Loop do this better in the past?
So no, School Loop, it said the name of the teacher. It didn't just say it was from Fremont. But it doesn't, so it is different. I mean, obviously, so, you know, if a teacher were to send a message through, anyway, that's how the portal works. And we are aware of it. We have tried to, like I said, educate the teachers about that so that they know when those messages come through. I actually have a meeting tomorrow with the secondary tech liaisons, and I will remind them and let them know that it is causing problems for parents. So I do have that in my notes, and Jason will be there, so he'll remind me. Bart.
Adding on to that too, the Public Information Department, part of the communication initiatives is looking at the responses and the streamlining our communication with parents. So it's not just the website, but it's also the tools that are going to be available. How are we using those tools? This is great feedback around the labeling pieces as well. So if the new provider for the website has a better tool, there's the potential we could be bringing that on. It's not quite in that scope initially, but it could be that that's an additional answer that has a better two-way communication approach.
So as far as future agenda items, it doesn't really need to be on the agenda. It's just one of those things we're aware of, and that is how it works. And short of getting an enhancement of some sort from Infinite Campus, and I don't even know if it's a possibility the way that works to do something like that. But Mel could certainly put it in an enhancement request in Infinite Campus. But we are aware of it. So there really isn't any discussion to be had. Everyone would think it would be great.
So in that sense, then I would personally suggest that, you know, as a committee, that we get back to the parent and say that it's a known issue. I mean, not just say, well, we heard it and we're not going to think about it anymore. We've done our best and there's no more discussion.
Well, I guess I don't really know how that works with, if a public comment is made, the way it works is we don't usually respond.
Right. We can't discuss it because it's not on the agenda, but as you're pointing out, there's really nothing to discuss because there's nothing we can do about it.
But Robert, I can take it as an enhancement request, like Don said, and run with it that way. We can put it as a case for Infinite Campus. As I see it, I can definitely ask the question. Or at least
we've
figure out
asked.
if we can-
Yeah, no, I'm not suggesting that we have to do something about it, but still, when people come to the committee, they should get some kind of response to saying, yes, we heard about it and we're going to think about it, or something to at least say that we've heard it. And I mean,
Well, how does it work, like say at a school board meeting when people do public comment? They go up to the mic, they say something. Do they get a response later on from the school board, or does it just get heard and you know, okay, we heard you? Diane Jones, Trustee Jones.
Yeah, well, at a board meeting, the trustees can only address items that have been agendized. So during public comment, we cannot respond to it at the meeting. If there's a comment that somebody's made that really needs a response, then staff usually follows up with them to connect them to the right person. Or
Okay.
Occasionally, Superintendent Kamick will address the question from the dais because he can do that, but board members can't.
right. I mean, I'm suggesting that, I mean, I could even do it. I could just say, you know, I've heard about, I mean, that there's nothing we can do about it, but if the chair, if you as chair would like to do that, I think anybody can respond back as a person.
Okay, so if that's appropriate for me to reach out to her, I don't know how to contact her.
I've got her email somewhere. I'll send you.
Okay, if you want to send me her email, I'd be happy to write her an email.
Sure.
Okay, thank you. I just didn't want to break rules.
Yeah, no, it was right. I just wanted to have a.
Okay. All right, thank you. So going back to our future agenda items. It seems to me like next time we'll get an update because it'll be November 7th. So we'll get an update because the communication will have closed with the CMS. And then in our list here, there's a variety of things. Does anyone want to speak to what they would like to see on, Mel, do you have anything first of all that you would really like us to discuss for next meeting?
I do actually. I'm sure everybody's familiar with what happened with LA Unified. I think we probably want to start talking about, well, maybe, and I don't know how far you guys know anything about endpoint security, but talking about a little bit more robust endpoint security strategy for us. I know I've talked about endpoint strategy with regards to our Chromebooks and SSIDs, but maybe just a conversation with TAC about endpoint security so we don't find ourselves in the same situation LA Unified did. So,
okay. So we have endpoint security update for CMS. Any other suggestions from committee members? Okay, so we have some listed there on that document. What we can do is we can figure out how much time we think endpoint security will take, how much time for the update for the CMS, and then we can look through that list and Mel can help maybe prioritize of those on that list what we want to add to the next month's agenda, if that works for everyone.
there's a lot there.
Yeah, there's a lot there.
I mean, do we want to tackle these 3 at a time, or how do we want to do that?
I think what we would do is prioritize, like you could help with that. And then once we choose a topic, we could say it would depend on what it is, right? If it's a big thing and we know it's then going to take the rest of the meeting, then we would pick one thing. If there are a few things on there that are smaller items, we would be able to pick more than one. So we kind of have to backward plan it depending on what we pick and how long we think it's going to take. Jason?
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify. A couple of the last items are the ones that I want, but if I recall, we were waiting until we had our infrastructure audit to be able to talk about BYOD or other things. So some of them are dependent on others.
Right. Absolutely.
So can you help clarify that, or maybe say that after this, then we could address certain things?
Yeah, I wasn't sure we had a timeline yet, Jason, but let's ask Mal if he knows when we might have.
So Jason, I just briefly put that out. We do have movement on that reconnaissance team actually going out now, and you'll probably see them at your school every now and then. A few guys coming out, going through the closet, through their IDF closets and MDF closets. So we do have movement on that, but that's not an official audit. I believe that would have to actually go through the board if we decide to do something like that. And I do want to start having those conversations about BYOD and the Chrome initiative, the 1-to-1 or 2-to-1. But we have to fix our infrastructure. So I'm looking down the line. So we do have our movement. We do have that movement going. We have started that whole process. So I'm figuring in the next couple of weeks, we can put something together for that network audit, and the wireless audit for the WAPs and everything. So just give me a little bit of time on that, because our guys are out there looking at the IDF closets and stuff to make sure that we've done what we said we did in phase 1 of our modernization. And once that happens, we're going to start that whole network thing. And then we can start looking at the BYOD.
So I guess, Jason, maybe the answer is we don't have to post the next agenda until that Friday before. So what we can do is we can know that's a high priority topic, but we'll make the decision whether or not we're ready to have that conversation or if we need to wait a little bit longer to have more information. And we'll basically say we'll do it as soon as we can, but we'll also do it when it makes sense. Does that seem reasonable?
That's
okay.
Compromise.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so I think we have enough that we definitely have some potential topics that have come from you all that we will make sure to start including on the future agenda. Bart?
Another piece that's part of this discussion is working on that roadmap and prioritizing. So that's actually on that hopeful agenda item, but it looks like it's going to be working with this document and working with our group to, make sure that those priorities are correct. But it is nice because we're aiming at one of our previous members' requests to kind of get a wider view of our goals throughout the year. So maybe as we come to January, we might have a more stable, discussed path that ties into, those pieces too.
Okay. All right. Well, look at us finishing at 8:20. So if there's nothing else, I will adjourn the meeting. And Robert, thank you. If you can send me that email address of FariaCon, that would be great. Okay, everyone, happy Monday. Jason, go watch the end of the football game.
It's over.
Oh, sorry.
Who won? Who won?
49ers. All right, go Niners. All right,
Thank
good night,
you.
everyone. Thank you for being here.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Good night.